Ready. All righty, so we are recording. Thank you very much, Jake, for the invite. This is becoming our, will become, has become, is becoming our regular Thursday night thing. The topic for today, we are the news now. All right, Jake, take it on. What topics are we going to cover today? I think you mentioned something about UFO disclosure.
Well, everybody's been talking about the new UFO disclosure. I'm not sure what the new term is for UFO, APA or
UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena with PH.
But yeah, a lot of people have been touching on the fact that Donald Trump sneaked this disclosure into his COVID package, and they basically gave some of our other branches about 6 months to come up with some disclosure to present to Congress.
Beginning of June, right?
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of people have been starting to throw their hats into it with their own takes on it and what they think is going to happen. I've heard Neil deGrasse Tyson touch on it. I've heard a couple other people I don't really find as credible. One of the gentlemen.
What did Neil deGrasse Tyson talk about? Because I don't listen to that blowhard very often. What did he have to say about the UFO phenomenon?
Well, he says with the current disclosure that there is, whether it's the Tic Tac video, whether it's other naval officers reporting videos out at sea, he immediately discredits it, but doesn't necessarily discredit it, but has more questions about the tools that they're using and how the tools are working, because these aren't being seen with the naked eye. So he's wondering if there's if there's something going wrong with what they're seeing it through, or if there's a chance that they could be misreading the information.
Yeah, he's a scientist. He doesn't like to believe in something that defies the laws of physics as we know them. The problem is the laws of physics as we know them are not quintessentially true. There have been civilizations. First of all, if we go down this rabbit hole, I have to say that I studied SETI, which meant that I had to study astronomy for a year and then SETI for another year in order to be able to get into this. Why? Because I've been into this stuff since I was 6-7 years old. The Nazca lines down in Peru. Obviously, from last week, we saw the picture from Machu Picchu, so I've been there. They've got obelisks all over the place, structures that you can't build today, cut stone that you cannot do with any of the tools that we have today. It's just impossible. I've visited the Mayan ruins, and so I've seen images carved into stone. I mean, you don't carve any little thing into stone. There were images of the king Quetzalcoatl getting into, or not getting, sitting sideways, like on a what we would see as a Saturn V rocket. So normally you see them sitting down, they're sitting in a chair, normally standing up, right? But he was in a sitting position with his back down. So he was like this, right? With his legs here and his head here. And he was like that on the image. The only way you sit down like that is when you're getting ready for takeoff on a Saturn rocket. If you look at the moon missions and everything else, that's the way they sit down and they prepare. They're sitting there with their back towards the ground to take on the G-forces as they leave Earth's orbit. And so whenever we see these things from 500 years ago, 800 years ago, 1,000 years ago, things carved into the Egyptian pyramids, things carved into rock that we don't know the age of, it does not defy my logic. I know it to be true. And so when I studied SETI, the first semester was basically telling us how big the universe was and how long it took things to get anywhere and how impossible it is to get past the speed of light with the tools that we have today, right? So as you get closer to the speed of light, your mass increases, plus for you to accelerate even more, you have to take more mass. And so you have to take all that fuel with you beforehand, and you're accelerating even more mass in order to get to that point. So it's basically, you'd have to take the entire solar system of energy with you in order to be able to get to another place. So forget that noise of going to another star, another planet, because that's just impossible. So what they focused on after that was sending the signals. They focused more on the contact aspect of it, of sending signals through pulses. You have your prime numbers, then you have the way that each one of the parts of the pulse end up turning, which gives you one dimension, one bit of information. Then the particles inside that are turning in a different way. You can add a second bit of information. You can add 3 bits of information, which means, and send it out at the speed of light to whoever is going to receive it, right? And so that's how you can send a 3D image or a movie, which is 2 dimensions and third dimension being time. So you can actually send movies and that sort of thing. So all that was basically what SETI was about, what they're listening to, what they're looking for, and what they're sending out and what they're hoping for. I was frustrated by that class because they might not know how to travel through space, but somebody else does, because especially if you study astronomy, there are star systems that are 2, 5, 7, 10 billion years older than we are. There are star systems that were started way there in the beginning, and they're probably burning out on their 3rd star, but they've been able to migrate. So those beings would be like 2 or 3 billion years older than we are. And for that, how much advance had we had in the last 100 years? How many advances have we had in the last 1,000 years? Now multiply that times 1,000 and try and figure out how advanced these people are, and if they can travel through time, through space, through incredible distances, yeah, fine. But then we get into the question that my uncle always asked me. Great, if you can figure out a way to have a propulsion system to do what they do, then I think it's interesting. Otherwise, we're just looking at the stars and wasting time. There's stuff here on Earth that we can do. So what I know to be true is that they have gotten here. How? I don't know. The thing is that now the government will be telling us the how, which is what Neil deGrasse Tyson still doesn't trust what he sees. It's not a problem with the film cameras. It's not some trick that they're making. You've got eyewitness reports. The pilots are telling you, no, what you see on the camera is exactly what I saw. I saw it doing this. I saw it doing that. If you doubt, go on to Joe Rogan's podcast. He has an interview with the pilot of the Tic Tac. And that's a 3-hour interview, 2.5-hour interview that tells us everything you need to know about the attitude, what it did. It stopped the radar, it blocked the radar, which would normally be an aggressive move. It completely paralleled him. And when he was about to react, it went to his meeting point where he had been, which was like minutes away in less than half a second. And so it traveled at speeds that we're not used to. So people don't understand that. And according to the physics as we know it, it's not possible, but it is possible because we're seeing it being done. And science is usually the study of trying to understand what we see, not trying to make up things and say, oh, reality is like that, but that doesn't match what I'm seeing. No. What you're seeing is a figment of your imagination. What's real is what we're telling you is real. No, that's bullshit. Your reality, what you see, what you sense, that is reality, and science is developed to explain that. Now, there are new phenomena which science has not been able to explain, and so they prefer to ignore it. That way, they don't seem as incompetent as sometimes their arrogance leads them to be. However, this is technology, and Tesla told us 100 years ago exactly how we can do it. There are patents that we have from Salvatore Pais, who was the guy who had the Navy patents, that tells us about the TR-3B, I think, is the triangle floating U.S. Air Force stuff. Yeah, that's alien technology. No, it's actually patented Tesla technology. They just made Tesla's knowledge from 100 years ago reality today. That allows them to create their own gravitational bubbles, which allows them to accelerate. They expand gravity behind them. They shrink gravity before them. So they're actually moving. They're not breaking any of the rules of physics because they're not actually moving anywhere. The bubble, the gravitational bubble they're in, is moving. And that, we don't know what the speed limit to that is because nobody's ever studied that, because we didn't even know it existed until recently.
So let's go back to what we started with the you brought up the ancient structures that showed precision cutting. Some of them I know for a fact need cranes to move. Some of them, which we don't even have cranes that could still move some of the mega
They didn't
structures.
use cranes, they used sounds, they used acoustics to move them.
Okay, okay. And so my question is, do you immediately count it as alien technology? Because the reason I
Answer the
ask that,
question of what I consider aliens.
well, the reason I ask that is because I often think of us as a civilization with amnesia, like Graham Hancock likes to say. I believe that we and past points could have been more advanced than we are today.
We
And
were, Atlantis was much more advanced than we are today. The Mayans tell us that we're on the fifth civilization of human beings on this planet. We've been annihilated 4 times before. The last one being by a flood, the next one being by fire, according to the Mayans. Then we got Revelations, which is telling us the Piscean era that we're in. Okay, remember that we are heading into the age of Aquarius, right? The famous 60s songs. Okay, you remember that song? This is the dawning of the age of Aquarius. Yeah, exactly that. And so that's the cycle that we're moving into. Now, it is a different reality. Elon Musk has called it more or less the great filter. Okay. The Mayans, remember last week I told you about the fact there are 2 spokes, 2 wheels of cosmic eventuality that we can feed into 25,000 years. And then either positive or negative, either we survive or we don't survive those 25,000 years. It depends on what we choose. It depends on what all these woo-woo people on the internet and on YouTube and on everything else are talking about, that 5th dimensional reality and perception and the way that we see life and the way that we react to things. Yeah, they're absolutely true. But what is that 5th perception, a 5th dimensional reality that we want to achieve? It was already shown to us by the creator so that we might be able to survive this particular apocalypse. Okay. And he sent his son to tell us, hey, this is who I want you to be. This is what I want you to be like. Be gentle, be kind, be loving, be generous. Respect each other as I love each other as I loved you. Okay, forgive each other. Why? Because the way you forgive is the way that you're going to be forgiven. But in the end, it's that elevated perception of reality that Jesus brought to us. Yeah, how did he divide the loaves? I'm still not sure how, 5 loaves and 2 fish fed 5,000 people and still had enough left over to feed another 12. Things like that, I don't know. We call them miracles. I like science to explain miracles, but not because miracles don't exist. No, because the science behind them is incredible. And for him to have done what he did really is a miracle. But to understand the fundamentals of how that miracle happened, make the miracle even greater. I mean, the parting of the Red Sea, man. I mean, we have stellar constellations. We have calendars. We have biblical days of the year that have to be, there are so many different minutia that came together at the instant. That's why he had pillars of fire holding off Pharaoh until the right time. Why? Because he wanted everything to be perfect. Why? Because he is perfect. Everything has to be perfect. And he has everything planned out. And so he planned that out to where it's on Passover. Okay? The same, I mean, they're the same dates laid out, millennia after millennia. And for him to make those things happen at that particular time, that particular way, it is more incredible than the act itself. If you look at all the planning and everything that had to be done in order to make that happen, and it did happen, and it did happen the way that they said it did, because today they have treasure hunters going down into the Red Sea, and they found a slightly elevated canal, one of the only places where this could have actually happened. And on that place, they actually saw chariot wheels buried in the sand. Okay. Spears, weapons of war buried in the sand, 300, 400 feet underwater. How does that happen? Well, we know it happened. People just don't want to believe what they can't see, feel, or touch, like Mr. Neil deGrasse Tyson. Oh, I don't believe it. There must be something wrong with the camera because that's just not possible. You can't do that with the physics that we know today. And I'm the top physicist in the planet. I say it can't be done, so there must be a problem with the cameras. Yeah. No
Well, he
arrogance.
even, I don't know if you've seen his recent podcast he did with Joe Rogan. He even traveled down a road I didn't expect him to travel down. He basically stated, well, if it turns out that this video footage is true, and he's like, then I wouldn't know. He goes, I wouldn't know. We don't have the physics to explain what's going on. And so then Joe asked him,
He doesn't have the physics.
Yeah, well, that's why it's theoretical physics. You don't actually have to have anything solid. But
let's not denigrate science as well. I mean, but continue on I want to know where you're going with this.
But basically, Joe asked him, well, if it comes out to be true, what do you think the better odds are? That it's technology from elsewhere, or it is suppressed technology from here? What is the greater likelihood in theory?
And what did he say?
Well, he said there's a possibility for both. He explained how it could be both. He explained,
both. Those are the probabilities.
So we don't make leaps and bounds when it comes to technology, but if the technology has been suppressed, it has been a small increase in technology, but then eventually when they release it to you, it looks like a big leap. It doesn't look like something small.
Yeah, because small incremental improvements over time, if you're not party to them, do seem huge whenever they're finally released. But that's not what we're talking about here. We had this technology before. It's been suppressed because we forgot it, because humanity forgets things after 2 or 3 generations. In fact, it's one of my frustrations because I studied my ass off to know as much as I could to figure out that it's not going to be worth much after 1 or 2 generations, whatever I knew. If I didn't write it down or get it on a video or pass it on to somebody else, it's going to be meaningless and it's going to disappear. So, it can be a futile search at times to understand how things are. Keep getting this flame on top of my head. I wanted to eliminate it. Maybe with more space, it would have helped. But anyway, the leaps and bounds thing does work, but the way that we got that information before is the same way that we got the information this time. And it is from, not necessarily from us. And it could be from abroad, but like they talk about on the channel Gen 6, it's multidimensional. Okay, that's what we're talking about. We're not actually talking about people that traveled 200,000 light years to get here. They could have, but not directly, not linearly. Okay, and they don't live necessarily there. They live in another dimension. Okay, now what we call those beings, for example, you like Star Trek, right?
No, I don't like Star Trek. Not a fan.
Not a fan of Star Trek. All right, so
Stargate. I am a big fan of Stargate.
Okay, well, that was a nice show as well. I enjoyed that for about half a season. Star Trek used to have this thing to where they said you can go down to a planet, but you can't interfere. That was one of their main propositions from like the Galactic Federation or some bullshit like that, right? You go down there to watch, to observe, you try and blend in as much as possible, but you do not interfere. If you see something that's going on, you don't agree with it, it's not your planet, it's not your right to do anything there. So we can basically assume the majority of civilizations have that understanding. Look, watch, but don't interfere. But there were those who decided, screw that, I'm not going to look and watch. I'm going to look, watch, interfere, make, and create I'm going to take this damn thing over. And that's what they've been trying to do. And every time they try and get close to actually taking everything over, the one who created everything says, no, 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 not here. I'm going to grab the ones that I want and I'm going to reset this whole damn thing. Boom. The problem is that we're on the last reset. And the guys that want to be able to take over everything and basically dominate humanity beyond our own comprehension to understand that we're being dominated. I mean, think about this. Whenever we finally get Elon Musk's Neuralink and we've got a quantum computer-based artificial intelligence, at that point, we're screwed because that quantum computer is going to calculate faster than we ever will be able to, and it's going to hack our brain in a millisecond. It will figure out, because it already has the programming for the human brain, and it will hack in there and boom, the instant that you connect to the quantum AI, you are a slave without even knowing it, because it'll be that voice in the back of your head that you think is yours, telling you what you want to do. But it's not you telling you what you do, or you know, a spiritual connection, a Holy Spirit, or some kind of influence, or whatever psychological voices we hear in our head, whether it's our father from our childhood or our grandmother from our childhood, or somebody telling us something that we rehear that voice in our head that helps us make the decisions that we make throughout our lives. As soon as we connect up to the AI, that's not going to be a reality, because the voice that makes our decision isn't going to be coming from any of the ones that cared about us. It's from the one system that wants to control all.
I always thought about ads, like if they ever had a tap into your brain. Could you imagine just driving by an industry or a building, and then they were able to, you know, tap into the Neuralink that you have, and whenever you were within a certain distance of the building, you would happen to think about McDonald's, or you think about, you know, I always thought that was interesting.
But that's what they're going to do with the 5G. I watched a video today, really bizarre. A guy got the AstraZeneca, and he was bugged because he can't get messages that he was trying to connect with Bluetooth. He kept talking about his cell phone tried to connect to him, his television tried to connect to him, his refrigerator tried to connect to him. And it's like, how do you know your body's trying to connect through the Bluetooth to all these different things? Because I get the messages on my cell phone that I'm trying to connect. And it's connecting to the AstraZeneca central computer system. And to prove this, they're sitting in a restaurant, TV's turned off and everything else. There's nobody else around him and everything else. He goes up to the TV, simply waves his hand, and all of a sudden it shows up Bluetooth connection to AstraZeneca, you know, information center and that sort of stuff.
I always thought it was interesting, the people that tell me that they don't want to take the vaccine because they're worried that the government's going to track them. And then my
No, we're
immediate
already
question,
being tracked. One thing is being tracked, the other is being influenced and controlled.
well, my immediate question after that is, do you own a cell phone? And they say, yeah. Do you own a
Yeah,
computer?
everybody's being tracked, and that's one of the things about the masking, is to be able to do that tracking better without necessarily, and to also to improve the facial recognition. Why? Because all of it are points of improvement for the Centers for Control. The Centers for Population Control. I mean, one of the things that blew my freaking mind, I was 12 years old, the book 1984. I read it in 1984. It was required reading, and the school basically gave it to us to teach us, look, these guys that look for predict the future, they're all wrong. They said, this is 1984. We're nothing like that. Look how wrong they are. Ha, 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 ha. But it was pretty decent writing. So that was their presupposition. But that blew my mind, and that opened my mind from that point forward, because I already had the Nazca Lines, the Bermuda Triangle, and, you know, Atlantis and all this kind of stuff in my head before I read that. And then I also had Revelations, which is something that I've been studying since I was 7, 8 years old as well. So then you put 1984 on top of that, which shows you all the tools for having that end time control. And that's where everything just sort of fit together. And now to see the fact they are implementing 1984 on a global scale. Remember, it's three poles constantly fighting each other, because if you have an external enemy, you can't fight the internal enemy, which is your own government. Your own government wants to control you. No matter how big the military is, if they don't have an external enemy, they will turn those weapons against their own citizenry. That's what Joe Biden is wanting to do now. Take away your guns and then point all the fucking cannons in your direction. Submit. Like you said, hey, take the jab or wear a mask for the rest of your life. It's your choice. Really, really. So that's what freedom looks like nowadays. So really sounds like freedom.
Yeah, we've been
You're
making
frozen.
jokes with some of our family members. What was that?
You're frozen, Jake. I can barely hear you. Okay,
Hold on
you're
one
better.
second. Got me?
Yeah, better.
All right. Yeah, no, we've been making jokes with some of our family members that got the vaccine. We asked them if they were growing tails yet or anything like that.
They're not growing tails, but they're growing proteins and certain viruses on a constant basis. And they will be, there have been indices to where they are shedding, which means that they can pass on some of those pathogens that they are creating to others. So they end up being centers for dispersion of disease. Plus, it is causing sterilization and miscarriages. So there's lots of problems there. If people want to see it or not, it's their choice, really. Like I said, I can't recommend it for anybody, but my entire family got it, unfortunately. Mom, dad, grandma, my aunts, uncles, everybody got the damn vaccine. So I'm hoping I'm wrong. I don't think I am. And if that's the case, I'm going to get an inheritance from all kinds of places in about 3 years. I prefer to have them press. Do
But
what?
of course, of course, that's just our opinion. Of course, we're not CDC experts. We can only speculate on these things.
This entire thing is speculation. If anybody actually takes my stuff as advice on real for financial, medical, or anything else, dude, you're brain dead. Why? Because if you want medical advice, you go to 5 different doctors and you read 8 different books and you open your fucking mind and you know what you're doing. You don't depend on somebody else's freaking opinion. You create your own through lots of freaking knowledge. If you want financial advice, you read 15 different journals, you watch 18 different channels, then you analyze 150 pages of the Wall Street Journal over 6 months to find out what the movements are. Study the damn thing, then you get into it. Once you know, you do. You don't go, hey, look, somebody told me you ought to buy this. Oh, yeah, I'm going to go into layitallonme.com Bitcoin. The fuck? That's bullshit. That's in the beginning of last century, there was a famous guy that mentioned a fool and his money are soon parted. If you depend on somebody else's freaking advice, you're a fool and you deserve to have your shit just gone. All right. If you're taking a vaccine because some fucking idiot in a tie tells you that it's good for you to be, patriotic American, save grandma, and you don't actually find out about it, you don't even go into the company's website to find out what they say about it. You don't go into the FDA's website to find out what they say about it. It's experimental to 2023. And guess who the fucking lab rats are? Not me. I ain't no freaking lab rat. Evidently my family is. But it's worrying. I hope they don't see this, but they don't watch my channel anyway.
I mean, I know Fauci's not a practicing doctor at the moment, but he might know exactly what he's talking about. You could always assume.
Hey, Jake, I got somebody asking how they can actually follow along because we're taping this, but it's you got the Zoom in live.
Yeah.
You're trying to put it out different places. Are you actually putting this out live somewhere?
I don't have it live right now. I only have the Zoom meeting up so that people can join the Zoom meeting and they can join our live conversation. And if they
Okay,
want to come in here, they can join in the conversation without having their face on. They could always take
okay,
off their video and also mute their audio, and they
that'll
can
work.
just be in our chat. Have any questions they want as well.
We're setting this up little by little. We'll get this right. Não é live, é gravado. Ele vai terminar passando a ser live, mas ele tem o Zoom para poder participar futuramente. Ou se ele quiser falar em inglês e esse tipo de coisa, pode participar também. Um, do me a favor. É alguém que eu conheço?
Não, na verdade é curiosidade minha e eu estou tentando já divulgar para algumas
Ah,
pessoas.
ok. Mas sim, aí é possível. I've got a friend of mine. Okay. Deixa eu ver. I don't know how to. Okay. Se você anota, este vai ser o chat, mas vai ser o Zoom. I got my drinking buddy over here, so after we're done with this, my night's going to be a lot more fun. But he wanted to watch, and so he was curious because I told him we were doing a live. Not quite there, almost there. At least we're recording.
Busca de seguidores.
Always looking for people to follow and to spread and to share and that sort of thing at all
Yeah,
times.
well, I mean, the one thing good about doing it this way is anybody that tunes in with us live, they're gonna actually get the full taping. Anything that we post on YouTube afterwards is going to be the edited version in case we get some random call-ins that we don't have time to vent exactly live. And then we still have to go back in the editing process and get it out before anybody sees it if we were to
Okay.
do it live on YouTube.
Yeah, see, that would have to be on you because I don't edit. Yeah, my videos are live. I'm not live to where people are seeing it the instant it's done, but live in that it's taped live with no cuts, no intervals, and no anything else. Because I usually feel that that's more honest and everything else. Now, the last one we had two pauses, but that wasn't necessarily editing the video. That was just a pause and a pickup afterwards. So,
Yeah,
because
no,
I like to keep things about as honest and truthful as I can. But
it
that's
has
just
nothing to do with dishonesty, of course. One of
with live. Oh yeah, I mean
friends-
TV used to have a 30-second lag time just so it could eliminate the people who said unruly stuff online on air. So yeah, I understand that.
Well, yeah, no, one of our friends, Aaron, was doing a podcast recently, and some people called in, and their video images were very inappropriate for all viewers, and then some of the things that they said were, just hate speech and just really bad. I mean, I don't like that term, hate speech. They were just bad things that weren't productive to anybody's conversation, and it might
They were
have
just hating on people. They were just haters.
and there's a good chance that YouTube could pull your whole video for that. So it's good that we have this
There's a chance they
way
can pull
of,
down your entire channel for that.
oh yeah.
So those are, see, I'm not, that's why I'm not on YouTube yet, because I'm not that professional. I'm on Rumble, I'm on Minds, I'm on BitChute. But really I upload the video and that sort of thing. I haven't gotten to the level of doing live, especially the interactions. I mean, it took us a while to actually get this interaction going, this conversation going. So yeah, having people call in and just spout out all kinds of stuff. Yeah, not my thing. However, but that's why Marfugal, for example, he has somebody, the callers, they call in and Dex usually takes care of all that. They tell them what words they can't say online. For example, when you and I were talking on Aaron's show, he's like, wait, you can't say that. Wait, we can't go there. Wait, you can't say. And yeah, well, with on Marfugal's channel, Dex usually does that with the callers beforehand. Okay, and so they know what trigger words are, what words to avoid, how to dance around, tiptoe around the tulips, let's say, and still get the message out. So yeah, that's a reality. I'm not at that level. I would like us to get to that level. I think we're only about 3 years out. Yeah, Mark's been doing stuff for about 3.5, 4 years. So I'm assuming that it would take us about 3 years to get to that point. Or more, because it's a whole nother situation, a whole nother ballgame. You froze. Oh yeah, okay, you're back. You're back. Thoughts,
I have a
ideas.
feeling.
I've been rambling for too long.
I have a feeling once we get our platform dialed in and which one we want to use mainly, then I think we'll be fine where we can go on a live stream.
If we can actually get this running, I'd love to be able to spout it out to 4 or 5 at the same time, get everybody to watch it. I'm still not
Yeah.
figuring out how to do lives on DLive. I want to be able to try that out. Rumble, evidently, I got to pay in order to go live. I don't know what it is on YouTube. Facebook, I'd like to be able to go live. I know that you could on BitChute, I could probably do something. Mines would be interesting to do. So the more places that we can actually get out there, that would be, great. Now, who monetizes? I don't know. We're not at that point yet. We've got I got like 5 followers. And so, we're not at that point of the conversation yet. We're still simply getting the information out, letting people know that there is a different perspective out there from what necessarily is being done. So we've done UFOs, we've done sliding scientists and digging into other realms, other civilizations, what they could or couldn't be. Look, if they're here to interfere, they're not here for good intentions. In my perspective, if they're here to manipulate and control, that's exactly what you do not want to do in another culture, another country, another planet. So those can't necessarily be trusted. And unfortunately, those are the ones that we see interfering in our reality more than anyone else. So are they extraterrestrial? Yes, because they're not from Earth. The Sumerians called them those from whom the heavens came. The Bible calls them the fallen ones. Choose your name, it's all the same thing. Now, are all aliens bad? No, that's like saying all angels are bad. No, fallen angels, demons are bad. Yeah, not angels. There's a difference. Angels know how to keep their position. They know how to do what's supposed to be done and not go against the basic laws of existence, which is you don't mess with somebody else's free will.
I was going to say, I think it's interesting because our perspective on aliens is that, well, from the beginning of when we introduced them to the public, has been that they're always bad and have bad intentions, whether it was H.G. Wells or whether it was, any later rendition. There's not a lot of good encounters with aliens. I would say it's the majority of the science fiction that's been pushed to us is that these are evil beings. And it makes me wonder.
Not all of them. I mean, was E.T. bad? E.T. was nice.
Well, and
Close Encounters of the Third Kind, they really didn't do anything bad.
There was something interesting about that. Steven Spielberg even said he thought of E.T. as being an evolved version of a plant, and that's why he had that ability to actually heal plants.
Evolved version of a plant? Okay.
Yeah, so
I hadn't read that one.
He's in that lineage. He actually said that to Neil deGrasse Tyson at the Museum of Science and Industry in New York.
Oh, God. Well, anyway, red shoes. They're going to do what they're going to do. However, the movies that you mentioned, for example, you got to remember.
Wait, before you get too far, what I was going on was the fact that when we think of them all as bad, and well, not all, but the majority as bad, I honestly think that our depiction of aliens is more of a mirror image of ourselves. It's that idea that we can only be as bad as we can fathom, and it's only things that we could imagine ourselves doing in the worst times. Like whether it's anytime a higher advanced community meets a lower advanced community, it never works out for the lower community. Whether it's
Usually not.
genocide, whether it's death, whether it's accidental death, or if you want to call it smallpox blankets, if you want to, there's 100 different scenarios where the more advanced civilization accidentally or purposely took over the smaller civilization. And so we just automatically assume that is what aliens would do. And I think that's our depiction of them in science fiction.
Well, what you just got through is the anthropocentric view. And that's a psychological reality, which means that most people have a tendency of mirroring, which is why we're seeing in the Democrats so much that, oh, Russia collusion. Why? Because they were colluding with China and Ukraine. Oh, they're doing this because they're doing the same damn thing on the other side. What we see, what we can blame in others is usually what happens in us. I remember there was a psychologist I was complaining about somebody one time, and he said, when you're complaining about that person, I'm learning more about you than about the person that you're complaining about, because we have a tendency of mirroring our own realities now. I try and not do that. Why? Because I'm aware of that, and I've been in 3 different cultures, and so I know very well what my reality is and what other people's expectations, thought processes, and everything else. So yeah, I'm not mirroring anymore, but it's a long time and a lot of work in order to not mirror. But yeah, that means society does that with aliens as well. And you got to remember the times when those movies were made, we were in the middle of wars. We were paranoid about everything and everybody. And so fear was the base of our culture at that time. And it continues to be. I mean, right now we're at war with an invisible enemy. And for the last decade, we've been in a war with a mentality. And, with the decade before that, it was 2 decades before that, it was a Cold War against, God knows what that was, but they're all systems of control.
Yes, no, it's always been like that, whether we're trying to control people with fear or whether we're trying to sell people sex. Those are always been the 2 industries that seem to stay stable over time.
What is a natural reaction to fear? Run, right? It's the fight or flight, right?
I feel like obtaining more knowledge about what you're fearful of, being more prepared.
Let's say you're living there in near the Great Lake. Imagine Godzilla comes out of the Great Lake, and you've got people screaming and everything else, and the TV says, Godzilla, hey, Chicago, ah. Are you going to go and double check to see if Godzilla's really coming as he stomps on you because he doesn't even notice you? Or are you going to run your ass off and get the freak away from something that can technically, even though he's a nice guy and he doesn't want to kill anybody, he's got, flaming breath, and he's 200 stories tall, and one step of his can wipe out an entire neighborhood, but he's good. He's not here to harm us. Run. When you see it,
but it depends. It just depends on the fearful scenario. Is the fearful scenario
it doesn't matter if they're here for our benefit or not?
No, because it does matter. If you're saying it's a monster attacking, or if you're saying it's a pandemic that you should be fearful of, which one do you run from? They're both to cause fear. Which one would you run from, though?
Well, you can't run from a pandemic.
You need to point to the monster.
Stand up to it. What I'm talking about is this: even if they were beneficial aliens that came down here to help us, I would recommend running and hiding. Why? Now, the thing about fear is that some people, whenever they fear something, then they'll attack it. Well, guess what? If they came here in a way that we don't have the physics to understand how they came here, I'm thinking they have weapons that use physics that we don't understand how those weapons work. And I'm pretty sure that our weapons wouldn't be much use to them anyway. So that would be kind of arrogant on our part. So what do, you run. It's not that, oh my God, I'm fearful, I'm going to panic, and I'm going to stand right here. No, you run. If you're in the middle of the savannah and there's a lion, you run. I don't care if it's a nice lion. You look like food. Run. If you're in the middle of the jungle and you see a tiger, kiss your ass goodbye, because there ain't no running or climbing or anything else that's going to help you escape. But still, fear is a good thing. It has helped save humanity for many millennia. The problem is when it's used as a control mechanism, because people have a tendency to be stuck like deer in headlights in fear. And somebody puts a collar on you and pulls you in a certain way, and from that point forward, you're a domesticated animal. And that's how they use fear. Does that mean that we can't ever be fearful? No, we must. Otherwise, you wouldn't, go next to a cliff, go to the Grand Canyon and say, oh yeah, I can walk, right along the edge. Nothing's going to happen. Yo, dumbass. There are like 150 people that died last year because they slipped and fell for a mile down. So,
And I think there's a big difference between caution and like traumatization. I mean, if you're over fearful of everything and you're traumatized from it and you can no longer move and you can no longer react, there's fight, flight, and there's freeze.
yeah, there's fight or flight. Flight is fleeing, is running away. Now, I say that from the point of
I also think there's a third one where it's freeze up. You'll see that in society very commonly where they don't know how to react either way.
Sheep have a tendency of, not sheep run away. But what you have is deer have a tendency to freeze up because they don't understand what's coming. And see, that's the problem with freezing up. Now, my dad always taught me, I mean, I'd swim in the ocean with some big ass waves, and he always told me, you cannot panic. The last thing you can do is panic, because as soon as you panic, you do the wrong thing. You start swimming against the current, you stop thinking, you start, just flailing about, you use your energy, you get exhausted, and before you know it, you're drowned. So
You're behaving irrationally to fix it.
Analyze, okay, with the current's going in, I'm going to swim. The current's going out, I'm not going to swim against current. I'm going to, save my energy. Current's going in, all right, I'm going to swim. And little by little, working at it, little by little, you learn how to float. So, you're not necessarily trying to keep yourself afloat the entire damn time. So there are things to keep you from panicking, but it has to be a mental and conscious decision, because it's easy to panic. Most people panic because they don't know what to do. So that's why, for example, Marfugel usually talks about, the prepping and the planning and the this and that and the other. I thought it was a pain in the butt when I was a kid. Oh, we're going to have a fire drill now. We're going to have a tornado drill now. I thought it was like, why? Now, as an adult, older, and, I go to sleep before midnight. So yeah, I'm old. That planning is helpful because when something happens, you might not know exactly what to do, but you have a general idea of what to do, which helps you go somewhere. Because that deer is looking at those headlights going, do I run left? Do I run right? Do I jump over it? Do I run away? I don't know what this thing's going to do and what's going to boom. While you're thinking that, you just got run over. So what I used to teach in American football is muscle memory. You do something, do something, do something. So in the instant that you have to do it, you don't think about it. You just react.
Comes natural.
You've done it so many times that you simply react. Because if you think about it, you're dead. Because when you need it, if you're going to rationalize something, you take too long. Most people don't have the experience to be able to blink. There's a book, actually, people should read. It's called Blink. It explains very well why experience matters. Because our subconscious can do calculations that our conscious mind takes years and decades to formulate. But in those years and decades, the subconscious is already doing it. And so when somebody with a lot of experience looks at a situation, they might not have the fundamentals to back it up or something else. Their gut tells them that. Their gut, their subconscious, the amount of experience that they've had tells them, oh, the ball is going down. It's going to continue going down. Not the ball's going down and it's going to go up because, I predict that gravity is going to be, irrelevant in 30 seconds. No, you see something repeatedly and you say that's the consequence of that particular action. And so you see something and you automatically respond, he's on the ledge. He could fall. Okay, so that's something that you have to think about.
You know, and that's what I meant when we started off talking about this is it depends. Do you need to run right away, or do you need to gather more tools to take care of this situation that just
Where are you
this
going to
fearful
run to? Just
Well,
running
I
in
mean-
circles with like a dog chasing your tail is also not helpful.
Well, yeah, there's immediate threats, and then there's threats that you are letting know about that you're supposed to be in fear of. Whether it's okay, I'm gonna be a gun owner now, and I'm going to arm myself and protect myself in this way because this is a way I can protect myself from this fear that I have. You know, there's
But does the
ways
gun
of-
really protect you from the fear?
the gun doesn't protect you from the fear, just the threat that is causing the fear.
Guns used in fear are usually the origin of the majority of the problems that we have. When somebody's breaking into your house, it's not out of fear that you're going to
But
shoot.
just like we were talking about with muscle memory, that's where proper training and everything else comes in. You don't
Absolutely.
operate it under those conditions. You don't operate a gun if you're fearful of it.
And you
or
don't
not.
allow children to operate it without knowing it. I mean, how many accidents have happened because kids got a
You just
hold of
don't let children operate guns in general.
Well, I've let
think
both my
there's-
boys
there's,
operate, but my pastor, my uncle were there and they learned gun safety, trigger safety. We were aiming at a specific place. The guns were not in their hands for very long. They were in the hands of a responsible adult and everything else. However, they had the experience of shooting off a gun, of listening to the sound so that they're not caught off guard or by surprise, by seeing how powerful it is in their hands. Even though it was a 22, it wasn't very powerful. It makes your hand kick back, you know, and seeing that projectile go out and hit something, hit a target that you were actually aiming at. Those are things that are crucial for people to know. So that when somebody tosses a gun in their hand, like in Terminator, for example, you're not like, sorry, I don't fire guns. Dude, okay, it's a battle for LA. You've got aliens coming down here. The guy threw a M16 into your arms. Oh, I don't handle weapons. No, just tell me where the safety is. Here's the safety. Okay, good. Trigger safety. Finger not on the trigger till I need to. All right, ready? Ready. Don't shoot your own people. Okay, keep it focused on where you need to go. Those basic things people have to have a tendency. Otherwise, they're going, where is this thing? And they got their hand on the trigger the entire time. And all of a sudden they start shooting and they get, oh, I don't know. And they're shooting. Never all of a sudden you got 15 dead that were their own friends because the guy was an idiot and didn't know how to fucking handle a firearm. Those people are a problem.
I think in the US, the biggest thing that I see responsible gun owners doing is they don't just immediately introduce you to a gun. Maybe you had an airsoft gun when you were younger. You had one with plastic bullets, or maybe you had
I
a
practiced
paintball.
hunting squirrels with my grandpa.
Yeah, maybe you had a BB gun. I mean, you didn't start out with a pistol that you might not have the training yet for. I've seen a lot of kids that were introduced to smaller things before they got into the larger caliber
That's
things.
usually the way it is. I mean, I was using stick guns when I was a kid. Regardless, I was still shooting at shit. Pew, 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 pew. It's innate. We have to have that ability. Now, yes, I've gone on paintball. I've shot at squirrels in Mexico City. We used to use BB guns to shoot at birds. At least my cousins did that. I didn't like it very much. There's the deer hunting aspect in Texas and Oklahoma as well. Plus a shotgun just to feel how that damn thing kicks. So you're not taken by surprise when you're shooting at somebody. And then obviously a Beretta when I was in college. And when I got down here, a friend of mine had a firearm here. They make them, they're the Taurus. Lower caliber, higher pitch sound on the bang bang. Those are experiences that you have. You can tell the differences. I'm nowhere near a friend of mine who goes out every weekend with some police department friends of his. Let's say they're like the SWAT team here in Brazil. And he goes out and trains with them on paintball, right? And so these guys aren't guys that they're out going, I got you. No, these are guys that are fully equipped, geared up, and everything else, and they're out there with the hands not on the fingers not on the trigger, and they're doing saying they're backing it up, and one going clear, I got you covered, that sort of stuff. The entire movement, and he's just training. He's a civilian. He's an English teacher, but he's training with his students. That's knowledge that I don't have, that I would like to have, but I haven't spent time acquiring. Now, is it necessary? It might be. But when push comes to shove, I prefer to be Rambo than who's Arnold Schwarzenegger. Arnold will take a machine gun and go in front of all of the, yeah, you got 5 shots and you're dead. I prefer Rambo. It's where he's hiding in the mud. Somebody comes through and he, strangles. The other guy he takes out with a, with a bow and arrow. Another one who puts an explosive tip on a bow and arrow. Never involved. And if somebody gets close, you cut them with the knife. Fuck the gun. There are different levels to where you take somebody out. You don't have to be the big, bad, tough guy that says, bring it on, I will take you. You're going to get taken down. It's like Goliath. Hey, Goliath.
That shows you the difference in the characters that they played. Rambo was the guy with muscle memory that had the experience, and so he used it to his advantage. Arnold was that guy, that big muscular guy that they put in front of everybody and expected him to do well with a big gun.
But that's what happened with Goliath. He was put there in front because he was the biggest warrior. Everybody was afraid of him, and so he won a battle without anybody ever shedding blood because he just scared the shit out of everybody. And all of a sudden, you got David says, yeah, I can do this. Then he grabs his little slingshot. Boom, a rock with the right speed in the right spot. Drop that sumbitch. Dead. The spot. I mean, it's a bullet wound to the head. Obviously, the guy's going to drop. Okay, but nobody had an idea of how to do that. But he had to hold off wolves and leopards and lions and other kind of stuff because he's a sheep herder. He's the weak little one that keeps, no, but he's a badass out there by himself, taking on the wildlife that wants to eat his sheep. Okay, because there's a lot of wildlife out there that wants to eat the sheep. And the purpose of the shepherd is to protect the sheep, even if it includes laying down his own life, like our own shepherd did for us. He laid down his life so that we might be able to live. John 3:16. It's a wonderful verse. You got to live by it. But wow,
For God so loved
we
the
haven't
world that
even
he
talked
gave
about
his
much,
one and
and we're just getting into it, and it's already an hour and 12.
For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only begotten Son, that shall ever not perish but have eternal life.
Whoever
that.
believeth in him shall not perish and have eternal life. That's the key part.
I memorized it when I was 14 in church camp.
John 3:16. It is the phrase. That is the phrase that saves the world. That's it. That's the beginning and the end of everything. Because after you go through your entire spiritual progression and you get into your high and mightiness, that I know the word and I know the actions and I help this many people and I donate to that many places and I'm a great being and everything else, we come back to the fact that no matter what you do, everybody deserves hell. And the only way to not get that just dessert is through somebody who already paid the bill. But for him to pay the bill, you got to say, thank you very much. I'm going to walk that way. Now I just thought about Aerosmith, in the song, walk this way, talk this way, walk this way, talk this way, just give it a chance. So what we do is we walk like Christ. Now, whenever he says give somebody the other cheek, it's not about, submitting and letting them punch you around. It's just like, oh, yeah, you smack that one? Here, smack this one. You think you're tough. I can take it. Give it to me, big guy. But I'll still be able to take you down. And that's not the point. It's not that I can take you down, because he could at any point. But the instant that he showed that would denigrate what he was here to do, because what we're supposed to be is humble. Because when we are humble, we elevate others. We help others. When people walk into your home, do you take off their shoes? Do you wash their feet? Do you give them a back rub or a shoulder rub at least to reduce the stress so that they feel comfortable and, welcome and calm whenever they're in your home? No, nobody does all that crap. But that would be what a servant does. Imagine, you're a king coming into your castle, and all of a sudden, everybody's lying, throwing rose petals on the ground so that you're only walking on rose petals. And as soon as you get there, people are taking off your coat and your jacket, and they're helping you out with these clothes that it takes 5 people to be able to tie up and put on you. And you've got all these people helping you out, and you lie your ass down on that bed, and you got somebody rubbing your toes and another person, feeding you something. Those are servants. Well, guess what? What we are supposed to be are those servants. Now, we're not going to be serving some megalomaniac, some guy who's just abusing everybody. That's what we're doing nowadays, being virtual slaves to the billionaires that run the world. We are servants to the Most High God, which means that we serve the smallest. We don't serve the big billionaires. They can pay us. That doesn't earn anything. We have to serve the homeless. We have to serve the hungry. We have to serve the small. We have to serve the people who are less privileged. It's not obligating everybody else to serve them. No, screw everybody else. We can't make anybody else do anything. We go out and do that. It's like the Dalai Lama said, be the change you want to see in the world. Well, the change I want to see is people being more like Christ. Now, how am I going to make people more like Christ? I must behave more like Christ. I can't demand other people. Jesus didn't demand anybody to do anything. He gave them the option. And if they took up the option, they're welcome. If they don't take up the option, it is also their choice. The rich man who ran up to Jesus and says, hey, I've done everything, the 10 commandments and everything else. I've been gentle, I've been kind, I've been, generous, and I've helped people. And what else do I need to do to get into heaven? And Jesus said, all right, go back, sell everything you have, give it to the poor, come back and follow me. In humility, serving others, right? Well, the guy dejectedly lowered his head and walked away. And then Jesus used that as a parable for others to understand that it is harder for a rich man to get into heaven than it is for a camel to go through the eye of a needle. That's a whole nother conjecture, linguistic conjecture about.
When you were on that, hold on one second. When you were on that, it reminded me of.
He did not force the rich guy to do what he wanted him to do. He didn't say, I'm going to grab all your stuff, I'm going to sell it, and you're going to come follow me because that's what you need to do. He gave him the option. The guy turned away and walked away. He realized that he couldn't do what was being asked, and so he walked away. Jesus did not obligate him to do anything. He gave him the choice. And that's what we have to do. Allow people the free will to accept or not. Because when we eliminate the free will, we're eliminating the proper essence of this existence. This entire experiment began with a proof that through free will, people we failed because everybody's a miserable sinner. But some of us, are wheat that he actually wants to be able to take to another dimension and use for some other purpose, which we have no idea.
So I wanted to ask you something, Michael. With that thought, I've always had this theory. Is it possible in your perspective that heaven or a more enlightened being is a higher dimensional being as well, and that they're able to pass through dimensions at an easier rate than others? Maybe you have to be fully in heaven at that point. In your perspective of what heaven is, and do you think that's possible? It could be a ascended.
Let's look at it this way. This material realm was created for this experiment. This material
What
realm.
I'm saying, so
There are
couldn't heaven
those who left
be
their
a higher-
residence, they left their state, and they came to a lower residence to be able to enjoy ours, and they can't leave that residence anymore. And the great filter, this great awakening, this age dawning of the age of Aquarius, as the Maya used to say, we are going through the galactic center, the galactic equator. So as we pass the galactic equator, we go on to certain demands on reality. Now, part of us is going to be, that's the great filter. So part of it's going to be held back by the filter. And part of it's going to be able to go through the filter and continue on in the evolution. And so that's whenever we're able to go beyond the material and understand the immaterial, when we start to live on the fourth and fifth dimensions, then we can pass the great filter because we're no longer beholden to the physical. I mean, this image behind me, these trees, I love these things. I've been helping all these things grow for 20 freaking years. But at the same time, the construction there next to me dropped 2 of them like it was nothing.
But that's what I mean. So maybe you can't pass the filter naturally, but by
The only way
following,
you can pass the
following-
filter is by adopting the resonance of Jesus Christ. He's the only one who passed the filter. He went there and came
Well,
back.
and that's what I mean. That's what I mean. So when you reach judgment and they say, okay, we judge you to be a good Christian
Now
or
we judge you
whatever.
to be a piece of shit. Now who's going to save you?
But no, I'm just saying. your judgment
Everybody will be judged. They will be weighed and measured, and they will be found wanting. Everybody. So we can say every single person is going to get up there to the judgment seat, and they're going to say, all right, you're a piece of shit, and here's the 20,000 evidences that we have to prove that you're a piece of shit. Now tell me why you don't need to burn.
So I'm just saying, if people are acceding to heaven, is that when they get that help from the higher power, the God himself, when they get that approval, can they then pass through the filter onto a higher plane of existence?
That
Whether
is the
it's a
filter.
dimension,
That is the filter. He is the filter.
the
Either you're
judgment is
in Christ or you're held back. Period. He is the filter. Because he is the filter through which this reality was created. This holographic reality was created through an interference pattern. That interference pattern is Jesus Christ. Only through his sacrifice was free will allowed. And the essence of this existence is free will. That's the reality, the base of the reality in which we are. It is free will. That's why we are all here, to be able to choose for ourselves, which is why we can't force other people into certain choices that they wouldn't take on their own. Okay, which is why it has to be an influence and the energy flowing forward, and it has to be the inspiration and the supporting voice.
20 more. I've always thought that I mean, so I'm assuming the watchers or the angels or the fallen ones, whatever we want to call them, I think they never had to adhere to that filter, so they might
did.
already be a higher plane.
They chose to go through the filter in the other direction.
But can't they pass
They left
through
their heavenly realm.
not just the fallen ones, but what about people that are considered angels when they come down and help earthlings or people in our plane?
They're not completely physical. And they have to follow orders. The angels that went down to Lot, they had orders to bring Lot back. Period. The end. Lot offered the girls so that, the people and the townspeople wouldn't want to do what they need to do. But that wasn't a requisition from God. That was a requisition of the pagan culture in which they were in, because the angels were there to pull them out. And so he said, hey, wait, there's some people, you don't need to destroy everybody. Come on, don't destroy the whole town. I mean, you can at least find, somebody. Yeah, you're the one. We're here to pick up you and your family. Let's go. It's time to go. Wait, maybe 25. Find me 25. He couldn't find 25. Find me 10. Couldn't find 10. Find me 5. He couldn't find 5. So I said, all right, are you done? Can we go now? Let's go, because shit's about to get real. And his wife didn't like it because she enjoyed all that stuff. And so right as they were about to go over the edge, she decided to look back one last time to go, oh, the city we're leaving behind. And because she looked back, she was not worthy, and she was taken over by the stuff which their garments were actually helping absorb, and for them not to have become salt. But the fact was that the waves coming off of that are what made Sarah into a pillar of salt, because the resonance completely dried her out. The others were beaten by it, but through all their layers of clothing and everything else, they never looked back, and part of their body wasn't exposed to it, and they went over the ridge and were away from it. Nobody ever looked back to find out what happened. Okay, Sarah did, and she's there to this day. She didn't go through the filter. Lot continued on. He lived. His kids also lived. Sodom and Gomorrah, we can find the balls of sulfur there to this day. And they can, if you light fire to them, they will burn. They are pure sulfur. Fire and brimstone, literally. It's not a artistic creation. It's literally what happened. And there has been archaeological proof proves that.
So when you think about the planes of existence and heaven and hell and this filter as well, do you think we are being on the plane that we're on as humanity? Do you think we're closer to hell, or do you think we're closer to heaven, or do you think heaven's out of reach unless we put ourselves in the position to reach for it?
They're both unreachable because they can't be reached.
No, not by physically like traveling to that
Okay.
destination.
We're
But-
closer to hell.
Okay.
I mean, think about it. The amount of garbage going on this planet today, the amount of corruption, the amount of child trafficking, the amount of human trafficking, the level of slavery, the level of human slavery that large corporations have over us, to where they can tell us, you inject something into your arm or you don't get money from us anymore. That is a level of slavery that is completely debilitating to free will. The society we live in today does not respect free will in the least, which tells me we're closer to hell than we are to heaven. Somebody else has faith that there's still somebody that's going to believe. The last person that will turn their face to Jesus, that is the time clock. That is God's alarm clock. When that last believer believes, the rest of this goes away because it's not important. The only ones who matter are the ones who will be used in that other dimension for whatever purposes we're to be used for. So the individuals do matter. The souls do matter. Bringing people to Christ does matter, because when nobody cares anymore, nobody comes and decides that, I'm going to be a believer. I'm going to believe in this religion or in this message and this essence and this energy, this wavelength. When everybody's caught on the physical, the only thing that exists is this stuff right here. If I can't see it, taste it, feel it, or hear it, it doesn't exist. When that is the reality of most or all in reality, then the end truly is here, because there's no reason for the experiment to continue. It will just denigrate from that point forward. Because
Well,
the only way, go ahead.
The other reason I was thinking that we were closer to what we consider hell than what we consider heaven is the simple fact that these demons or these evil entities seem to be able to contact us a lot easier and manipulate us a lot easier than the heavenly beings. Just like you said, they weren't exactly there. They were just there in their essence. They weren't able to like possess a human, or it doesn't seem like they have that physical control that we do
They don't.
to the
They're
darker
not allowed
beings
to.
closer to our plane of existence.
Possession is something that's possible, but that is eliminating your free will. That goes against the basic concept of what this reality was created for. Okay, so that's the essence of the control factors. That's what Neuralink is all about. That's what the AI system is all about. It's about systems of control. But I need a break real quick. Can we pause?
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, so thanks for the break. Where were we? We were talking about fallen angels, Nephilim, UAPs. Earth is closer to hell than heaven, and because of all the shit that we're seeing, which is why we're supposed to try and make heaven on earth. For example, one of the things that I asked you, what do you think of my garden? Does it look nice?
Yeah, it looks good.
All right. This was when I bought this land, it was clear cut. All of these trees that you see are just 1/20th, 1/5 of what I've got here. I've got a lot more trees than that. These are my favorites, and these are some of the first ones that I had there. But basically what I did was I tried to make my heaven here. But something that's not just my heaven. I mean, my house, I've got an area to where people that like to sit around the coffee table and just talk. I got an area that's like a kitchen table. Some people like to be in the kitchen and talk. They don't like to be in other areas. Other people like to be in front of the television while they're watching something, a football game, and everybody's talking about the football game going on. Then I've got the dining room table to where everybody can always get there. So there are areas that I have for everybody to feel comfortable here. Now, my wife complains there's too much room and all that kind of stuff. But in reality, I didn't do it for me. I did it for everybody else. My two kids are, almost going off to college and that sort of thing. But this house has served them well their entire lives. And they've grown along with the house. And that was my objective. And so what we're trying to do here isn't create hell on earth by making things more difficult for everybody except us. It's making a heaven on earth, making a place to where people are around us, they feel more comfortable. They feel served. They feel loved. They feel welcome. That's the essence that we want to be able to take to the entire planet, to where they understand, okay, now if they denigrate us, that's fine. That's their option. But we also have the option to turn our back and walk away. Because the problem is that those who turn their back on the Father, he will also turn their back on them and allow them to be torn apart by the wolves. And this world is full of wolves. And so if we're not close to the pastor, the wolves take out the sheep. So the best way for the wolf not to get the sheep is for the sheep to stay close to the pastor, the shepherd. Okay. The problem is that I'm one of those sheep that loves to get stuck in the briar bushes. I mean, I've done all kinds of crazy stuff that, in reality, I should not be around. The only reason I'm still around is because my merciful Father decided that there might be a better use for me later on, and that I might learn the lessons from those hardships that I underwent. Because everything has a lesson to it. Now, I have a better interpretation to be able to deal with an alcoholic or a drug addict or something else, because I'm not judging them from the very instant. Oh, look, there's a fucking crackhead. Yeah, I bet he's a piece of shit. No, I look at that guy going, what kind of a life did he have that led him to that decision? Is there any way that I can touch his life to where he might choose something different? But I'm not going to make him stop being a crackhead. Why? It's futile. He'll take advantage of you. He'll bite you. He'll take you and everything. You're not doing it for the individual. You're doing it for God. Why? Because the influence you put on that person might not give you some kind of response. The guy will still be a crackhead 2 years from now. But 2 years from now, he's going to remember, oh, that guy said such a thing. And yeah, I'm more or less the place that he thought that I was back then, but I hadn't hit rock bottom. I am now. And what that guy said really makes sense. I had to think about doing some of that. That's the influence. We're not doing it for that individual. We're doing it for God. We're putting that message out there so that that resonance will eventually be absorbed, picked up, accepted by somebody. Not for our benefit, not for our glory, because we probably won't even see the effect that that has on that somebody. Just like we never see the effect that the negative things that we say and the negative things that we do have on other people. We never see how telling somebody to fuck off in the middle of the afternoon, you don't follow that person to their home to find them bawling on their knees in the evening because they were having a shitty day and at the worst hour of the day, somebody told them to fuck off and it just broke them for that day. Nobody sees that because it was just comfortable in that instant because you're angry. Yeah. And you're just letting that energy out. But that energy was received by somebody or something, and it had an effect on them. It resonated with them for a longer period of time. And so as long as we can have a positive resonance on other people, that they can have, today was a shit day, but there was that one guy that, when I dropped the umbrella, he picked it up. That was a nice thing. I didn't think people did that anymore. Small things, insignificant things that we don't even notice. Just being kind, being helpful, being generous, being what really would be a Christian. There are lots of Christians out there who are judgmental, materialistic, self-centered, and they're just trying to find some way to make everybody else less than they are so that they can feel great. That's not the way of Christ either. Because when there's a parable that I absolutely love in the Bible, the 12 disciples were arguing amongst themselves. Who was the greatest one? Oh, I did 5 miracles in such and such a place. And in that other town, I did another 2 miracles. Well, those miracles aren't nothing because I have 200 people that started following because of me. And I spread the word to another 2,000 in another town. Well, that's nothing. I cast out demons from this place and the other place. And when they were all arguing, who was the greatest among them, who had done the most great things, and who would be the most remembered apostle or disciple? Jesus didn't say a thing. He went out, he got a bucket of water, a rag, and he sat down in front of James and he started to wash his feet. And the other disciples, wait, you can't wash my feet. You're my master. Why should I wash you? Why should I let you wash your feet? He says, if I don't wash your feet, you don't get into heaven. Because we're all dirty. We take a shower every day. We take off the dirt that's on us and that sort of thing. But our feet at that time, as you walk through the dust of the dirt, your feet got dirty. That dust of life was on your feet. And so he cleaned that dust and that dirt and that grime off their feet. And that's what he does to our lives. He puts us in a new robe, that puts us in a new light, that makes us clean again, that allows us to walk on the white carpet. Because we can't walk on the white carpet if we've got dirty feet. Now, why did he wash the feet? Because he said, look, if you want to be the greatest, then be the least. I washed your feet, so you should also wash the feet of others. Take off the dirt and the grime that's making their life so dirty. Help them instead of throwing on more mud and more dirt to make them feel even worse. Make heaven on earth. You're muted.
I was given instruction for dinner. My girlfriend's cooking dinner at the same time, so she's helping out.
This is a good time. We've gotten well over an hour, definitely. It's a good talk today, Jake. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no,
Definitely going to be doing this every Thursday. Now, I was going to be playing soccer, and today my son had communion, not for communion. I forgot what it is in English. Whenever you're taking the classes, you can take communion. Confirmation class. That's it. So he's in the middle of confirmation class, and usually Thursday wouldn't be a good day because of that, either confirmation or soccer. But this to me has been more enjoyable over these last 2 weeks than either one of those two necessities. So yeah, we can set this up on a Thursday. It seems like a good day. We just need to set up a time and figure out how we can actually make this go live versus taped and then uploading to 5 different places immediately afterwards, which is what we did last week. That worked. You put it on your YouTube, I put it on my Rumble, I put it on my Facebook. And so that way we get things out, and that's a good thing. Any other topics you want to hit on today?
No, I think we did good. We had a good discussion. And like I said, I really appreciate you sitting down and talking with me. And I like getting other people's perspective on a lot of things. And you're very good at it, articulating it better than most, especially with some of my religious questions that I have and stuff like that. I've never actually, I said this on Aaron's podcast the other day. I thought you articulated the story with John Locke better than anybody else, better than anybody else that I've ever asked about it. And they seem to, kind of freeze up and don't really know how to justify the actions of John in that situation. And
It wasn't, sorry, you got it. That his name was Lot.
It was in the book of John.
Yeah, exactly. And then because there's a philosopher, there's an English philosopher from the 19th century called John Locke, Locke. Okay. And he's along there with Nietzsche. He's a fundamental figure in philosophy and the way we understand things today. So you got to be careful because you seem to be confusing the two things. And John just explained it more or less in the book of John, because Lot itself is described back in Genesis. So
there's actually a third one I'm getting it mixed up with. It's actually a character from Lost, and he's the one that
okay, well, I can't help you there. I didn't watch Lost.
Yeah, John Locke is his name, and I keep saying that instead of actually getting the right one out. But no, you've actually explained that story to me better than anybody with religious experience before, whether I've asked people that have come to my door pushing religion, I've asked pastors, I've asked my grandparents who've been involved with Christianity for over 40, 50 years, and none of them seem to have a good answer for me. And yours was the most honest one that I could actually take wholeheartedly. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate your articulation of it.
Thank you. The articulation, you can thank my father for giving me paying for the education that I got, to Academic Decathlon, which debate team and all the reading that I had to do for that, the preparation for MIT and Harvard, which were extremely demanding. So yeah, if I can make things comprehensible to the normal person, that would be, thank you very much. Sorry, my arrogance got better of me. I should simply say, thank you very much, Jake. That was my that was my objective, is to be able to explain things. Professional basketball player makes slam dunks look easy. Try and do them in reality, and it's a pain in the ass. If not, you can't do it because we can't jump that high. Einstein said that genius makes something complicated look simple. And if I can do that for you guys, that's why I'm here.
It's just like we were talking about earlier, Michael. It's muscle memory. You've been working a different muscle than the rest of us, and it's good to hear your perspective on religion because you had a little more experience with it, and it sounds like you've gone down a few other paths with it and done your own studying as well. So
lots of rabbit holes to fill in those holes, definitely.
So, well, I hope you have a good night, and thanks again for doing this with me, and we'll talk again soon.
Well, I thank you for inviting me on this. This is a fantastic idea. And like I always tell people, when I do things on my own, I'm not really that successful. Having somebody else there is like an influence or an inspiration or a responsibility or some other reason to get me to do this. So I thank you, Jake, for being able to make this real, and we'll get this uploaded. I'll send it to you right off. Thanks again. Have a nice dinner. I'm sure that it's going to be great. You're closing in on 10 till 6 your time, right? I'm assuming. All
Yep.
right. So I already had dinner, but I'll probably be having some, I would say, not protein, sorry, but carbohydrates. I'll have lots of carbohydrates here pretty soon. So thank you very much, Jake. Have a good Thursday. Enjoy dinner. Say, give a big old hug and a kiss to the loved ones, and I'll see you next week.
Cheers. Have a good night.
Peace out, everybody.